Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be doing an update on the bull market support band, which again is a combination of the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So if you're like me and you were watching it live, it was a pretty close battle between the bulls and the bears. The bulls trying to close above the 20-week SMA, the bears trying to close below the 20-week SMA. And it really went down to the wire. Now, one of the interesting things is that if you tour social media and look to see did we close above it or below it based on what other people think, because we've made a pretty big deal about the 20-week SMA over the last year or so, some people say we closed above it, but then other people say we closed below it. But it's like, isn't it one of those things that you either close above it or you close below? Like, why is there a confusion? Well, if you don't believe me, go on over to Twitter. And I put out a poll not that long ago. I said, did Bitcoin close above it or below it? 36% say above, 29 say below, 35 say it was a tie. Okay, so we were trading right around that 20-week SMA. Now we look at it and we say, well, why do people have conflicting opinions, right? Why is there a conflicting opinion on whether we closed above it or below it? Well, on some exchanges we closed above it, and on other exchanges we closed below it. That's how close the battle was. The bulls on some exchanges won, the bears on other exchanges won. If you don't know what I mean, we've shown this chart before. Actually, this is the one we normally show, the one on the bottom. The one on the bottom color codes it color codes it green if we're above either the 20-week SMA or the 21-week EMA, either of them. So it's been green for the last couple of weeks because we've been above the 21-week EMA, and that's all that matters according to that metric, as long as it's above one of them. But this one above only color codes it if we're above the 20-week. So if you look at Bitstamp, we closed above it. You can see this little green sliver in here. You might say, well, why is it red now? Well, it's because we've fallen back below the 20-week. By the way, the 20-week now has come back down to a modest 43.2K. The 21-week EMA is now at around 40.1K. So on this exchange, we had a weekly close above. But if you go on over to, say, Coinbase, it's still red, right? It was below. If you go on over to, say, Binance, above, right? If you go on over to, well, this is calculated, I'm not sure how accurate it is because it's calculated by TradingView. They're not getting exactly from Binance. Let's go look at Binance US. Binance US, above. Let's go look at the index. Above. Okay, so a decent number of them have closed above. Some of them have closed below. Let's go look at some more because there's a lot of them. Gemini, below, and FTX, below. So you can see why there's so much confusion. Some people say above, some people say below, and the reason is simply because on some exchanges we close above, and other exchanges we close below. Now, we need to talk about a few other things, all right? A few other things, and it's pretty important, right? I think it's pretty important. Let's go back over to the index where we have all the data. So here we are. We sort of had to close above it, but we also sort of had to close below it, right? I mean, it was more or less a tie because you cannot say across all exchanges it was a clear and decisive victory for the bulls. So what does that mean? Well, we need to keep an eye, in my opinion, we need to keep a close eye on the 200-day, okay? Because we cannot yet decisively say that Bitcoin closed above it if, in fact, on half the exchanges it closed below it. We need to keep an eye on the 200-day. Why? Well, as I said before we get to the 200-day, we know that in a downtrend, we can get bounces off the 50-week. This is not uncommon, right? It's not uncommon to see bounces off the 50-week, and we've seen it many, many times. Now, sometimes we get rejected by the 20-week. Other times we break above, but this time we actually failed to hold it, okay, as support. We held it as support a little bit later on in the year. You could argue that the pandemic had something to do with this one back in March, okay? But regardless, we know this is, even in a downtrend, you can get a bounce off the 50 week. And a lot of times it takes you at least to the bull market support band. Okay, I mean, this is what we said. I mean, we talked about for months about the idea of a relief rally at the very least. And at the very least, we know that this is a relief rally. Okay, we're not, this is a relief rally. This is 3 straight weeks of 10% moves or more, right? This one was 11.5%, 12.5%, 10%, okay, 9.97%. So around 10% or so or more. So 3 strong weeks in a row. At the very least, it is a relief rally. Now, we have to look at the whole picture, right? Because, I see a lot of people, they only look at what they want to look at. And a lot of people ask me if I'm bullish or bearish. You're sort of missing the point, right? It doesn't matter. It's just, you need to be realistic, right? You need to be realistic and you need to manage your risk. So what does that mean? Is that just, fancy words that I say? It doesn't mean, I'm not meaning it to be like that. I'm just saying manage your risk accordingly. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that, you don't necessarily go bet the family farm at a potential area of rejection, okay? Does it mean you shouldn't have any Bitcoin? That's up for you to decide, because there's always a chance we break it and we go up. But you don't need to go bet the family farm or anything like that. And some people say, well, where should you bet the family farm? Well, I would argue with crypto, you should never bet the family farm because you really don't know what's going to happen. With that said, if we're in this region in the future, if we're ever back in this region, which we will be eventually, I mean, it might not be this year, maybe it'll be next year or 2023 or 2024. At some point, we'll be back in the bottom regression band, but it is moving up monotonically. And you might say, well, should you bet the family farm there? No, I still don't think you should. I mean, maybe you bet the family chair, but I wouldn't bet the family farm anywhere in crypto, okay? So the reason we need to keep an eye on the 200-day SMA is because, well, that is a pretty significant line in the sand, is it not? And the only reason we say it's a significant line in the sand is because we've seen rallies that also stopped at the 200-day. So I don't want to do anyone a disservice by not showing all the data. One of my main qualms with some analysts is that they only ever use TA or on-chain metrics or whatever to tell you why the price should go up. Okay? Think back to February, March, and April, when I told you guys we were ahead of schedule and that we needed to calm down. I told you guys we were ahead of schedule. But a lot of people were not saying that. I mean, most people were calling for, 300K by September. They were saying that the floor on Bitcoin was 50K. We would never go below 50K, etc. And then when the prices go down, then they just sort of flip their sentiment. So they ride the momentum as long as they can, and then they just they just keep flip-flopping on what they say based on what the price is doing that day. Okay, so I don't want to turn into like an echo chamber where I just tell you the bullish case, right? I want to show you all sides, and I'm not here to tell you what's going to happen. I'm here to present the data, and hopefully you can manage your risk accordingly, okay? So if you want to know what I'm looking at, because I don't have a crystal ball, despite what many of you guys might think, if you want to know what I think is an important area to watch, is the 20-week SMA, okay? Can we actually close above it this coming week? And if so, what we would like to see is a rally above it, and then at some point to come back down and hold that support. That's what we want to see before I feel like you can put on, again, your metaphorical laser eyes. Until then, we're still sort of just playing in the sandbox down here trying to get above the 20-week. And additionally, I would look at the 200-day simple moving average, because again, that is an area we've seen ourselves get rejected in the past. So you can see we got rejected here and we got rejected here. I told you guys back in May that I would expect a 3 to 6 month lull in the market, okay? A 3 to 6 month. And, we're out 3 months at this point. Basically, we're out 3 months, and we still do not have a quite decisive break back above the 20-week, okay? So my thinking, if I'm being just completely honest, is that August, this month, will tell us if we're about to continue the next leg or if we're kicking the can down the road, maybe closer, to the end of the year. Okay, I think August will tell us that, because I say that because a lot of times August can be a pretty decent month. On the other hand, September is usually not a great month for Bitcoin. And so I'm hoping that the bullish case will be getting above the 20-week SMA, going on a little bit of a rally in August, and then maybe in September we come back down and test it as support. And then if that's the case, then maybe October, November, December can be a nice run, kind of like we had last year. Maybe we can get back to an all-time high, and then maybe we can even extend that into 2022, hopefully in light of the lengthening cycle stuff we've been discussing. But alternatively, if we ultimately get rejected by the 20-week SMA, if we get rejected by the 200-day SMA, then we're essentially kicking the can down the road. And I don't think there's necessarily a problem with that. I think that it just gives more people time to accumulate. A lot of people that I know would actually prefer Bitcoin just hang out for a while, because I think a lot of us, while a lot of us may disagree on exactly how Bitcoin will go to 100K, we might disagree on if it'll happen this year or next year or in 5 years. Most of us would probably agree that it'll eventually make it there. Whether you think it's going to go back to 30K first, 40K, 20K, 10K, whatever you think, most people would agree that eventually it's probably going to go to 100K and above. So with that in mind, a lot of people look at this and say, well, if it goes up now, great. If we get rejected, then it's not really that big of a deal, because we still are going to sort of operate deterministically, even if it's not the smartest idea. We're still going to operate deterministically. And by the way, I'm operating deterministically on Bitcoin. I feel like I kind of have to justify positions in altcoins and whatnot. So that's what I'm talking about. Okay, I think that we need a few more weeks, and we should have a lot more clarity on what the end of the year will bring. Okay, whether it's going to be a downtrend going into the end of the year, and if it is, then hopefully we can get back above the 20-week SMA and then hold it as support either later this year, early next year. I'm guessing that even if we get rejected here, we will test it again this year, even if it's a few months away. Okay, and we could get above it, and then it could take a while to come back down and test it as support. So that's why we really just don't know exactly how long that'll take, but that's sort of what I'm looking at right now. So one of the funny things is I see people all the time, we see all the on-chain analytics, which make things look really, really bullish. We look at historical patterns for Bitcoin coming off a major run, and that makes it look somewhat bearish. And then if you look at just the most recent price action over the last 3 weeks, obviously it's got a lot of people bullish again. You look at institutions coming in and whatnot, reasons to be bullish. So you could make a case either way, and I think people should manage their risk accordingly. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what's going to happen. But I would like people to at least know the areas they should be watching. The 20-week SMA is obviously a pretty significant area to watch, the line in the sand. The battle came directly down to it, right? Again, some exchanges closed above it, some exchanges closed below it. And it's not even a nice round number, right? It was at 43.83K. So you can't even say, well, it just happened to be at a nice round number. No, it was literally at 43,830 or something. And that's right where the exchanges closed. So you can see the importance of the 20-week simple moving average. And right now we're below it. We opened this week above the 20-week SMA. Okay, we opened it above it because we opened it at 43,835, but the 20-week SMA this week is 43.2 or so. The reason we opened above it is because the 20-week SMA dropped by $600 or so. Okay, because it was over 43.8, now it's 43.2. So we dropped fairly significantly on the weekly time frame for the 20-week SMA. Therefore, the open opened up here, which was above it. So this is a pretty important week, in my opinion, because if we open above it, which we already did, okay, so I shouldn't say if we open above it, but if we close above it, okay, so if Bitcoin opens and closes above it, then that looks pretty good, right? It looks pretty good if we can open and close above it. So far, we have an open above it on all exchanges. We have an open above it because the 20-week came down. We do not have a close above the 20-week SMA on all exchanges, right? Because on some exchanges, it closed above it, and on other exchanges, it closed below. But even if they closed above it, they would have opened below it last week. So a more bullish scenario for Bitcoin, which would get the bears kind of maybe scratching their head, would be if we continue this, and not only do you get an open above the 20-week, but if it also closes above the 20-week. Okay, because if you look here, if we go look at the last 3 weeks, we have about 11.5%, 12.5%, about 10%. So if we were to get one more week of, say, 10% from the open, that puts us at around 48K. Okay, so if we go to 48K, then not only are we breaking through the 200-day SMA, we're also breaking through the 20-week SMA decisively. And then if we close it next week, that will look a little bit different than last time. Okay, I put out a tweet earlier, so I thought it was somewhat useful for people. You should use historical data and historical moves to tell you what is theoretically possible, to tell you what can happen, not to deterministically tell you what will happen. Okay, use it to tell you what can happen, not what will happen. That way you look at things and say, well, hey, there's a possibility this market flips extremely bullish if we start closing weekly candles up here and we go back up to this range. And if that's the case, having some Bitcoin on hand isn't the worst idea. But what these historical moves also allow you to do is to look at these prior moves in the market to say, you know what? We've seen rejections off these levels before. Therefore, I'm not going to bet the family farm. Right? I'm not going to bet the family farm because we recognize that that is a risk in the market. Okay, so it's all about managing your risk. I would say do it however you see fit. Whether that means going all in now, if you think this is where we break it, more power to you. I mean, I hope you're right. If you think it means leaving some dry powder on the side for a potential drop, more power to you. Good luck. I mean, I hope you're right too. I just want people to make money. I don't want to, I don't want people to lose money. I'd like everyone to make money. Obviously, the bulls and the bears can't make money at the same time on the spot market. But ultimately, I do hope everyone does well, and that you're learning something, hopefully something from watching the channel. If you guys like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. I will remind you, we did get the new shirts in. So if you go to store.intothecryptoverse.com, you'll see the dubious speculation t-shirts. We also have some other shirts too. We have just simple Into the Cryptoverse shirts, What's a Few Trillion Among Friends shirts. We have a mug. We also have these sweatshirts and whatnot. And actually, I really like these t-shirts. They're actually pretty comfortable. They're made of material called Bella Canvas. Well, it's funny, Bella, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Lincolnator, right? Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully it was informative. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I will see you next time. Bye.